Welcome, everyone, to the Dr. Blue Duck podcast. And today we have a fun guest. This is Dan Artis, a rock star. And I mean, a pretty legit rock star here who became a dad, one of my long term friends all the way back to junior high. So, Dan Artis, go ahead and introduce yourself, my friend.
No, what you guys don't realize is I have known Terry Tripp almost his entire life.
Pretty much.
So I have a perspective on Terry Tripp that not everybody else has.
And I want to go all the way back to junior high here because in seventh grade I wasn't very musical, and then at the end of my seventh grade year I saw the drummers. I didn't really have any desire to play music, but I saw the Tevis Junior High drum line, and to me, I'm probably not in real life, but to me, I thought they were just the coolest thing in the world, and I said I want to do that. So the next year I joined Drumline, and that's where I met Dan Artis, who played the Quince. Was it Quince back then?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah,
Yeah. I never played snare in junior high. That's right. Yeah. So I
yeah,
did. I was in the pit in seventh grade, and then in eighth grade did the quince. You're right.
yeah, the
Yeah.
Quince, and
Yeah.
then we got separated after junior high. He went to a different high school, and in driver's ed downtown, I was
Yeah.
hanging out there. And back in junior high, and now too, but more so back in junior high, I was not the coolest dude at all. Dan and I were probably the not the ladies' men back in junior high. We weren't the coolest dudes.
Nah.
um,
Nah.
I think I slicked my hair down and had all this acne, and Dan had the
Dude, I had a mullet, dude, like crazy. Yeah, it was amazing.
back before they were like
Yeah,
cool, you know?
okay, kind of. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had like the curly hair. I
Yep.
remember that. So we lost contact for a little bit, and we were in driver's ed. And I'm doing driver's ed. It's downtown. I don't really know too many people. And all the way down the hall, this guy's like, Terry, what's up, man? And I'm like, I don't know this dude. I don't know this guy. He has these piercings. He's
What would
wearing
you do?
he's wearing all black. He has all these spikes. I don't know if this is a good dude or a bad dude, but he's yelling my name, and it's Drummond Dan Artis. And I'm like, dude, it's Dan. And he was like, all, super cool looking and everything, rock star status. And we got reconnected. And then what happened after that, Dan?
Yeah. After that, we joined a certain band together. Actually, I think you were already in said band, so you might want to talk about my audition and how it went.
Well, yeah. So, so there's this guy named David Urquhart. And the
Uh,
way we met was a youth leader at my church was like, hey, Terry, you like music, you play guitar. Hey, David, you like music, you play keyboard and trombone. Why don't you guys start a band? So I'm like, hey, David, nice to meet you. Nice to meet you, Terry. And we're like, hey, what type of music do you like? All types of music. What type of band do you want to start? I'm like, I don't know. How about you? And he's like, I don't know. How about a ska band? And I said, yeah, that sounds cool. What's ska? And he goes, I don't really know. And he goes, but I think there's horns in it. So we decided to start a 90s ska band back when ska was like super in with the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones and the Specials and Five Iron Frenzy.
Supertones and
Yes,
yeah, that whole thing.
Supertones,
Yep.
all of that. And we started a ska band. So we had to do some research to figure out what ska actually was. We learned how to skank and do all that, but we needed a drummer. We had a lead singer who was girl, so we kind of had that Gwen Stefani vibe from No
Hmm.
Doubt. But we couldn't find a drummer, and we had people audition. Some people just couldn't keep a beat at all. We had this one guy audition, but he just kind of like, he just couldn't rock it. He was trying a lot of just little stuff on the hi hat. Maybe he was just like a church drummer, and that's all he did. So he was kind of brainwashed to play really quiet. We needed a solid rock drummer who was a solid dude, and that was kind of hard. And that's when Dan from junior high came back.
Yeah, that's right. And I came back and I walked into the audition and went, Terry? So sort of like I did in driver's ed. Terry? What are you doing here? It's like he just kept popping up, kept showing
Yeah,
up in my life, you know? And that's happened tons of times over the years.
I know. So we started ska band called the Scholastics. I mean, what a better name, right? We
Ska, because you always had to put ska on the name, right? Yeah, yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
And so we were the Scholastics. We were all going to college.
Which, but I brought some things,
Oh my goodness.
which is right here.
There's our
It's gonna
album.
be it's backwards. Sorry, but there's our
Oh,
album. Yeah,
it's all good. That's it. Music for the masses, Scholastics. Yeah. We had 7 people, right? 7 people?
yeah, 7 people. That's an interesting thing to try to navigate.
Yeah.
7 schedules.
And I know our bassist Hans is probably going to watch this, so shout
Yeah.
out to
What's up,
Hans.
Hans?
I know maybe Joshua Allen Schwa is going to watch
Yeah,
this. So
yeah, yeah.
shout out to Schwa and anyone else from the Scholastics, the old group, the old band.
When's the reunion, guys? I'm
I
ready.
know we've been waiting. Now, oddly, Dan mentioned reunion. Yesterday we had worship practice at our church, and it was the
Hmm.
first time that Dan and I played together in like over 20 something years. So
Yep,
it
it
was kind of cool.
happened.
I was kind of rusty. Dan was awesome, so it was super fun. But anyways, we
Your
did
bass
that.
was awesome, though. By the way,
Yeah, it
it
was
was it was
fun.
it was really cool looking.
It
I
was
liked it.
special. For me, it's really important who I play with, what musicians I play with. Playing music's a real special thing. And that and the bands that I played with Scholastics, it was a very special, I would even use the word anointed group of people. And the other bands, a few other bands I played with was the same way. But there's been groups of people I played with, I'm just like, this is not right. This is not where I'm supposed to be. But last night playing with that worship team with those people, it was like, this is right. This is
Yeah,
where I'm
yeah, yeah.
supposed to be. So Scholastics, just like a lot of bands, we did our thing. We played up and down California. We had a good run. We had a couple CDs. It was really cool. It was a very fruitful band, a very fruitful
Yeah,
band
it was
music
fun.
ministry. Yeah, good times. One show we were playing out in the middle of nowhere. We're just rocking out, and I look back at Dan, and there's blood just
Just
coming.
blood down my face. Yeah, I was playing and the tip of my drumstick severed off as I hit it, and it just kind of hit me right over the eye. And of course, when you're playing in a band, you keep playing through that, right? Like that's the thing, right? It's not the song in the middle of the song or anything, right? But yeah, it was a it was super rock star with all of the blood just coming down my face.
Dude,
It's
you
like,
didn't
okay,
skip a
let's
beat.
stop, let's stop.
You did not skip a beat. We didn't even
Yeah,
notice. So, you're rocking out. You look back at your buddy Dan, and there's blood
yeah,
coming down. We're like, um,
yeah. Brett turned into mom zone real quick there, trying to trying to figure that out real
yeah,
fast. Yeah, it's all over
yeah.
the drums. Yeah,
Our lead singer, being a girl, she was like the mother of the band. I think she was like a year older than us too.
yeah,
So
she was. Yeah,
super great lead singer. And there, our band eventually ended. No fights or anything like that. We just kind of moved on to different stages of
Brett went
life.
to college,
Yeah,
so yeah,
everyone
separated
went
out. Yeah.
different places. And then what happened to you, Dan?
Yeah, so I went to Biola. So that's where I went to college. And at Biola, I met a band that I got into. Um, Basically just dorm friends, and we all put a band together called Anthem. And that was, we had some moderate success, I would say. We had some cool things that happened. We won a Volcom band joust, so basically it was sort of a battle of the bands thing that we won. We were voted one of the top 10 guitar driven bands in the country by Alternative Press magazine. We did a stint on the Warp Tour in 2003, and it was just a very interesting, progression from going through college, graduating college, immediately hitting the road and going out for the summer of 2003, and kind of being somewhat famous at the time because of a certain other thing that I think we're going to talk about. But basically, I had been on a show that earlier that year in that I shot in January. I had auditioned for a slot to play with Blink 182 on a show called MTV Duets. And basically, it was me, Travis Barker, and then obviously the band who came in at the second half of it. But basically, I played and recorded with Blink. And so it was an interesting obviously a very interesting thing to experience and to, see it firsthand and things like that. But we basically shot that show in January 2003. I was still a senior in college and I had 21 units at the time. So I was buried like you wouldn't believe. Um, Shot that show in January. It aired, I want to say March or April, if I'm not, or maybe, yeah, March or April, something like that. And then during that time where Anthem is kind of having some cool things happen, and we won the top 10 guitar driven bands well, the what's it won, but we got chosen as one of the top 10 guitar driven bands of the country. And then that gave us a stint on the Warp Tour. And so I go on the Warp Tour and we're selling all kinds of t-shirts simply because, oh, I'm that guy from the Blink show, right? Like, oh, or whatever. And so it was interesting to have a few months of that where you kind of experience what it's like to have the kind of people looking at you funny as you walk by them and stuff. I mean, and that happened for years after that too. I mean,
Yeah.
I played in another band called Dogwood for a while, and we did a show in Canada, and I was signing more autographs as the MTV guy than I was for Dogwood.
And that
And
is,
that was in like 2007, 2006. I mean, this is like 3 or 4 years after. Now, at that point, I learned that MTV plays shows in the US, but then they rerun them for years afterwards in other markets outside of the US. So like whatever's new and exciting here is done pretty quick. And then they, you know, re-air the episodes over and over and over again in other countries. So go to Canada and it's like it's all fresh in their minds, and I'm like, wow, I didn't think this mattered anymore. I mean, it was 4 years ago.
and it is,
But
it is so cool when you see your buddy, your friends, your former bandmates that you just kind of did life with for a number of years on MTV
yeah,
playing
yeah,
with Blink 182. I'm like watching that. I'm like, dude, that's Dan. That's
yeah. It was like
Dan
three
right
years
there.
after you and I were playing. Yeah,
Yeah. And then Dan, I stayed in our hometown for college. Dan went to, of course, Biola, a couple of hours south from where I live. And Dan would come home and we would hang out. We would always go cruise around till the late hours of the night and just talk about life. That was back when gas was really cheap, and we just drive around. Dan had a
yeah,
lowrider truck. I had my little Corolla car, and it was good times. We would always catch up and talk about life and our frustrations of being single, probably,
yeah,
and
yeah.
health advice, how to be fit and healthy, and all that, and spiritual talk and all that. But we decided to go to the Newfound's Glory Good Charlotte concerts.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I forgot
Yeah,
who
the
else
Pop
was.
Disaster tour in 2003-ish, something like that. It was
Yeah.
it was Newfound Glory, Good Charlotte, MXPX, and Motion City Soundtrack.
Yeah. So Dan was going to go to that with me. And I think we even ate at Chili's beforehand before we went to it. It was a big concert. And you said, Terry, just a heads up. After doing this MTV thing with Blink, I'm kind of a little bit famous now. Like people recognize me, and I'm like, cool, whatever, Dan. Like, sure, bud. I love you, but sure, whatever. I don't think that's really the case. But sure, okay. So we went, and you were right, man. Everyone was like, hey, you're the guy from
You're
MTV
the guy. Yeah, yeah.
MTV Duets. Yeah, hey, you're the guy from MTV Duets. You're the guy from who played with Blink. You're the guy who played with the Blink. And all
Yeah,
these
and that's
people.
that's what I was always known at.
Yeah.
Are you that guy from the Blink show? Like nobody knows my name, It's just that guy from the Blink show, which is
Yeah.
fine. But it's just it was all because he would always go like this. Hey, aren't you that guy from the Blink show? Yeah, yeah, that's me. Were they cool?
Yeah.
Yeah, they were super nice to me. I mean, they treated me great. Like I went out to eat with them afterwards, and I spent 2 days at their studio, and like it was great. Oh, okay, cool. All right, bye. That was it. That's it. Every time it's how it goes because they don't know me from Adam, right? But they just
Yeah.
know me because of the Blink. And the only reason why it's still even relevant at all is because Blink is still relevant somehow after all these years, right? Well, I mean, not somehow they're talented, but what I'm getting at is that it's like most bands don't have the kind of longevity that Blink has had, right? So that was just, I mean, they did 4 other episodes of the MTV Duets show, And I think maybe Usher was one of them, so he's still around. But a couple of the other ones, I don't even think they were even in the business anymore. So, right, like those guys, who knows? But because it's the Blink show, and because it's Travis, and because it's like they're still relevant, it's kind of kept it going all these years. So I have some stuff if you want to see.
Yes, dude. Let's see these souvenirs, and you can also definitely YouTube Blink
Yeah.
182 duets.
MTV duets, Blink. Yep,
You can
exactly. And
watch
so you
Dan
can
on
see
it.
the whole episode. Yeah, the whole episode's on YouTube.
He's younger, but he looks the same.
So yeah, we basically I spent 2 days at the studio with them. Which I could show you a little bit of that first if you want. So there's at the so this is the studio where they were recording their self-titled album. So this is off after Take Off Your Pants and Jacket. So this is the second the album after that. And they had rented a house in San Diego at an undisclosed location, right? I wasn't allowed to know where it was. I kind of had to keep my head down in the car as they drove me there or whatever, because they didn't want me to know like I was going to be some creepy stalker guy or something. I think that's why the band picked me, actually, because even in my audition, I was very clear, like, hey, I'm coming to learn. I want to learn something, because I knew Travis was teaching lessons still at that point. So he still had some students that he was teaching. So I'm like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna play in on that, because I'm not like the creepy weird guy that wants to chase after him and run around naked with him and stuff. No. So I'm like, hey, I'm coming for the music. And this was the right time, I think, for that, because that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to change their image to be more of a music driven band, and not so much of the like silly, crazy, naked jokes and stuff,
Yeah.
like that kind of stuff at this point. So I think that was probably part of why they picked me, was because I wasn't going to be that guy. But anyway, so you know, it was at the studio that they had rented. Basically, it was these people's house, and then they kicked them out of the house for like 3 months. They took over the house, and so basically, you can see some of it in the background. There was like guitars and like a couch and stuff
Yeah.
like that. It's gonna be kind of hard to see. I'll try to make it clear,
Yeah,
but
we can see it.
anyway, so there's kind of the setup of the house. So you see the fireplace in the back there, and then the two
Yeah.
drum sets, right? So I showed up the first day, and the first day was, so there's the front of the house. I showed up the first day, and it was just me and Travis, because we were gonna rehearse the song, right, and kind of go over everything. So I mean, I sat there easily 2 or 3 hours before even seeing Travis or anything. I didn't know if he was there or not. They just had me kind of hanging out, because they were prepping everything, getting the cameras in the right spots, running microphones, all that kind of stuff that they have to do. And so basically, they bring me in, and I see the setup for the first time, that we're like, hey, here's a drum set that you're going to be playing, right? I had never played on before, ever, you know. And then, hey, here's all the cameras in your face. Hey, here's the lights. Oh, and hey, Travis is going to be watching you the whole time. Okay, all right. Well, yeah. Let's hopefully we can make this happen, which was a crazy thing, right?
I'm
Um,
gonna say, Dan is and has always been a highly skilled drummer. So I don't think
Thank you, sir.
this was something he was super worried about. But I mean, it is Travis Barker.
Thankfully, it's like, hey, we're gonna do stay together for the kids. Where I'm like, okay, that's probably like one of the easiest drum songs they have, right? Like it's not like the crazy, crazy Travis Barker stuff where you're like, okay, it's a little intimidating. But it thankfully that's the one that they picked. But and partially, I mean, if you watch the episode, you'll understand why. Is because there's a good give and take that him and I do, right? And so it's interesting if you watch the video of it. I mean, this is 2003 MTV, right? They weren't the best at like editing at the time. You'll see like a headphones on, headphones off, headphones on, headphones off, like during the whole thing, because like I said, we were there to practice together, me and Travis, but then also there was a performance part with Tom and Mark. And yeah, so it was kind of a back and forth. But anyway, so there were parts that we were playing, that Travis and I meant to play, where we were playing a beat, and then he was, a half a beat off. And so do-da, do-da, right? So we were playing it specifically that way to make the song interesting and have a part that we play off of each other, and then we traded off solos basically. So he would drop out and I would play, and then I would drop out and he would play. So you can kind of tell I'm the lower snare drum sound that you're going to hear, and he's the one that's got the crisp kind of. I mean, he's got a very signature sound, right? You can tell when it's Travis. So the higher pitched snare drum is when he's playing. So there are times, there's plenty of times where we're both not playing, like it's one or the other. So you can kind of hear it if you know that. You can kind of hear and tell who's who at certain points. So here's a funny story that not a lot of people know. Okay, funny story. At the time, Travis didn't like double kick pedals, and he didn't have one. And I had talked to him about it. He's like, "Yeah, I just don't, I'm not really my thing," which is fine. I mean, he's faster than single pedal. But I did double pedal during the recording of it because I just thought it worked well, and it was my solo part, so I did what I could do, and all that kind of stuff. And ever since, like all the YouTube comments, like, "Oh, Travis is playing double kicks," like, no, there's me, dude. But now Travis is doing double kick, which is interesting. So he's done some recent videos in the last couple of years where he's added that double kick element to things, and I'm like, hey, I was there at the beginning when he wasn't doing that. I don't know. It's just my little funny story to tell, right?
That is cool. So you got to hang out with them, you got to meet them. And I want to go on to even a bigger story than that because
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
cool. That's really cool. But in my opinion, something way cool happened. Your band Anthem, it changed, right?
yeah. Yeah. Sorry.
Oh, it's and what did it change to? What happened? You guys got a new singer or something?
Yeah. So we went from Anthem. So I don't know. I guess I'll just show a little bit more of this stuff.
Yeah.
So
I want
there's the Anthem merch booth at the Warp Tour.
nice.
So you can see anyway. So we kind of did that whole thing, got to like go on the Warp Tour and be backstage, right? Like, hey, here's Avenged Sevenfold, and like I'm just hanging out inside the stage with them. Here's it's Pennywise, so I'm standing right behind him, Pennywise, right? I
Wow.
don't know. It was just like one of those like super cool weekends, right? Like I want to do this a lot. I want to do this forever, right? So I just kind of like really got that spark to like go really hard after this thing. You know what I mean? So there's my backstage, my all access pass or whatever, right? And it was just one of those things like, man, when you're there and you're like on stage every day watching your favorite bands, it makes you go, man, I really want to do this. So like you were talking about, it was Anthem, and then that went on for a few years until we kind of realized, I think, that we needed to increase, kind of go in a different direction if we really wanted to make it a living, right? Because we were trying to make it a living. So there's only so far you can go, I guess, with punk rock or whatever you want to call it, metal. We were kind of a mixture of both. We were kind of like a sort of a Thrice ripoff in a sense. We're sort of like Thrice and Lagwagon mixed, if you want to look at it that way. So anyway, so we were kind of thinking, okay, we want to go bigger. We want to make this thing. I had sort of seen what the real band look was from the Blink show, right? Like, man, this is a whole nother level. Um, and so we decided to kind of go in a different direction. So we kind of went more of a pop rock kind of a vibe, and we swapped to Midnight Hour, and we got a different singer. Now, with our old singer stayed in the band, he was the lead guitar player, right, and backup vocals. But we had a frontman singer that came in that only sang and then did keyboards as well. So from there, we did that for a few years, and then in 2006, we got signed to Interscope Records, which at the time had, One Republic and Eminem and Snoop Dogg and, all kinds of things like that.
So for our
And
audience listening, you guys got professionally signed
yeah,
on the
yeah. So
same
I
record
signed, I
label.
signed the major label contract with paperwork that thick
Yeah.
at Interscope's office, and our A&R guy actually went on to found Beats headphones.
Wow. I
So
mean,
and then they sold it to Apple for like $2 or $3 billion back in the day, right? But our A&R guy was the guy that went off with Dr. Dre and started Beats headphones.
I mean,
So
just that alone to be signed on the same record label as like Eminem. I mean, this is a big deal. This is a huge deal. Like
so
they
from
paid you
there,
money for
the
it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, cashed a big signing check. Now, obviously, that didn't go very long. It didn't go very far because we were essentially signed and then shelved shortly after. So shelved, for people that don't know, basically means you get signed and then you never get greenlit to go actually make your record. So basically, we were constantly in the perpetual state of giving more demos, giving more demos, giving more demos. And then nothing ever got them, I guess, excited enough to actually put money behind an album and go do the actual album and, get moving. Right. So, just is what it is.
Which is a bummer because
Yeah.
you had fans and you had music and it was good and people listened to it and people were like, why isn't this album like famous? Why isn't this
Yeah. We
played on
had a
every
song that
radio
was
station?
picked up. Yeah. We had a song called Running Away, which you can find on Spotify. It's our albums on Spotify. Go listen to it for free. Midnight Hours, the band names, Running Away is the song I'm talking about. And we actually had that song picked up. They wrote a Ghost Whisperer episode around that song. So it was a CBS show with Jennifer Love Hewitt. And it was kind of a surreal moment for us because one day I'm working a desk job, right? Because I still had a desk job at that point. Because like I said, we weren't greenlit to make a record yet, right? We hadn't been able to do anything. I kind of tell people it's like I was signed to the Lakers. I had the jersey on. I'm sitting on the bench on the side of the court, but never got put into play, right? Like I had the Lakers jersey on, but I never got put into play, right?
And
Essentially.
it's even more frustrating because it's like you have the skill to play too. Like you guys had it all. And if they would have put you out there, it's like you guys would have just rocked it. So you would have had
Yeah.
that
So
success.
let me kind of finish that story. So basically, I was working a desk job still. And then the following day, I'm at the Universal lot, at Universal Studios, not the theme park, but the studios where they shoot the movies and the shows. And I'm in a Star trailer, and I'm getting makeup done next to Jennifer Love Hewitt and JC Chasez from NSYNC. I'm like, what the heck is going on right now?
Yeah.
Like, okay. So it's just one of those things where, you get a glimpse of that, like they wrote the whole episode of a CBS show around our song, and our song was the culmination of this guy, be able to get rid of his demons or whatever and be able to play this song. And that was the whole thing. It's like, he had to talk to his ghosts or whatever to get that to happen,
Well, tell us
but
too that you guys were in the show.
yeah, we actually went to the show to play the band. Like there was a lip syncing actor that sang the front part, but you'll see me in the background playing the drums. And so it was just such a cool, like, crazy thing that I'll be able to tell my grandkids about. You know what I mean?
And
So,
here
but
I
anyway,
was.
so like
Yeah.
we had that show out, had a lot of buzz around that song from the show. Like people that had watched the show went to find us after that. So we had this momentum building up around that song. And so, at the time we're signed to Interscope. And so Interscope's preparing, like, hey, if this thing goes crazy, we need to be ready. Like they had the Ghost Whisperer people shoot us a music video for the song at the studio, and they incorporated Ghost Whisperer stuff into it just in case it went crazy and we had to throw something out real quick. So anyway, so we had a lot of that momentum going on. We had, we were signed to the label. It took a few more years. Things got weird around that time with illegal downloading. We were one of the last old school record deals that they did. That was a record deal that only did music sales, right? It wasn't a 360 deal where they take a chunk of all of the aspects of how a band makes money. Does that make sense? So they were starting to sign deals differently very soon after we signed. So after a while, it started getting 2008, 2009, when like the world had changed, Napster was what had happened, and it was just the landscape was changing. And they also had just had a huge hit with One Republic.
Okay.
And so I Apologize had just hit like massive. I mean, that was like the highest played song on radio that year. And so they had just had that. So they kind of thought we were sort of a competition to that, I guess, because our big song Running Away was kind of a ballad like that. Like if you go listen to it, you'll see what I'm saying. Um, so anyway, so we ended up getting dropped from the label in 2009, which we were at the time happy about because it had been 3 years and we're like, man, like just let us do this finally. Come on. Right. So we got dropped. We took the momentum that we had from the show into a Kickstarter campaign because that Kickstarter was still fairly new at the time. So we took it into a Kickstarter campaign because we had all these people internationally that wanted to see us put this song out that they had heard on the show that was nowhere to be found, right? They couldn't buy it anywhere at the time. So we did a Kickstarter campaign, raised money to do it that way, and then did the record ourselves at our studio that we had built with some of our money that we signed with. So we built a studio in our guitar player's garage. So we basically took a year, put the entire album together, and the album that you'll hear on Spotify that has the 4 slash marks on it. You'll see it's like a black album with 4 like claw marks, I guess you'd say, on the front. That album we did in the studio ourselves with the money that we had raised from Kickstarter and put it out ourselves. Now we went later after that record was done and started shopping it to get signed again. And we were about, I'd say 2 or 3 months into contract negotiations with Sony Jive and had already had the celebratory like sushi dinner on the label, had already gone to Sony Publishing to play for them at the office to like, get to know them so they can like get our song published, right? In movies or whatever it is, right? We had already done all that stuff. And then in October of that year, we got the email that basically said, all pending contracts are null and void. Sony Jive is being sold to RCA. Not anything that's pending is canceled immediately, basically. And so at that point, it's so late in the year, the music industry kind of shuts down during Christmas times. Like so January, December, January, February, it's kind of just dead. So really at that point we had a meeting and it was basically brought to our attention like, so pretty much we need to make another record because now what we've made is like last year's music and now we're going to try to get signed next year, like in summer maybe, and it's going to be too old. We're like, oh man, you know. And at this point, I'm 32, I think 33 years old, right? We had been doing this for a while, right? So we had been, I was in that band for 10 plus years, I think, in Midnight Hour. So, at that point, I'm 33 years old and I kind of have this kind of come to Jesus moment like, man, if we're going to make another record, it's going to take 2 years. The way that, we don't make record that quick. I mean, we put a lot of effort into it and we all have jobs and we're all grown ups at this point. We have, we're all living in Orange County. You can't just not work and try to survive in Orange County. So, we're basically having this moment where, man, it's going to be 2 years to make another record just to have the opportunity, maybe at that point, that the songs are good enough to get any attention from labels again to maybe get signed if it even happens. And then so what am I, 34, 35 before I even start trying to build on this and like tour for 2 years and make no money, right? Because that's how it is. You start touring and you don't make any money for the first few years until you can start headlining yourself and then you can start making money. But really you're paying artists at that point to get on their tours for the first few years. So at that point, I'm like, man, well, I have other goals in life. Like I want to start a family and I want to, have kids and I want to get married. And like, I don't want to just, be 50 years old and playing Jerry's Pizza. We talked about that last night, but
Yeah.
I don't want to be 50 years old and playing small clubs and things like that. And kind of living the road life, that's not really what I want to do long term. Like I had some goals there for music and achieving some things in that time frame, but it's man, I really want to have a family at some point. So I kind of at that moment, at that time, really had to think about it because I'm a man of faith, right? Like I have, I love Jesus and I'm a Christian, and I want to, um, you know, I don't want necessarily the things of the world as much as maybe other rock stars, you know, and I wouldn't consider myself a rock star, but you know, rock stars want, right? I'm not, those aren't really things that drive me or get me excited. Like I was there for the music, right? Um, but now it's like, okay, well, you know, I kind of had that come to Jesus moment, like, man, am I really gonna keep doing this? So I kind of got to the point where, you know what, I think I'm done, right? We've had two shots at the label thing. Now I'm getting older, you know, they want to sign younger people. Like it's just gonna get harder and harder to be able to actually make it. Um, so at that point, I decided, you know, I'm gonna move from Orange County. I'm gonna move back home to Bakersfield. I'm going to kind of just regroup and see what else I need to do and what, you know, figure something else out. So I had to quit the band, which was not fun, you know, and wrote the letter and you know talked to him and you know I was a founding member, you know, as that's crazy, you know. So it changes the sound now, right? So yeah, so I ended up leaving the band at that point and basically moved back home. Kind of had to work through that. Obviously, that's was a tough season of life, as you can imagine. Because you know it's like, hey man, it didn't really work out, you know, and I gotta figure out what's going on with my life and what do I do from here. And you know, I really thought that was going to be my life and what I was going to be doing, and you know, but and because I was like, man, I had it in my hands, you
And you're
know,
not
but
21
I
anymore.
didn't have it, but I didn't have it in my hands, right? I
Yeah.
didn't actually have it in my hands, and I don't think it was what God ultimately wanted for my life either, right? Because you know, um, so I moved back, and a month later, I get set up on a blind date with my now wife. We were married about 6 months after that. You know, at this point, we're both in our 30s. I mean, it's like once you meet somebody, you know, I dated enough to know that like, hey, she's the one, like she's it, like that very very quickly. And so you know, we got married shortly after that. And then from there, you know, we had some kids and I got three kids and I could not imagine my life now involving being on the road for 6 months. Because nowadays, artists, musicians make their money on the road. Like there's no money in album sales. There's very, you know, there's money in merch sales, but a lot of that happens on the road, right? Some happens on a website, obviously, but there's a lot of hands in that cookie jar. A lot of the money that's made, you know, the artists aren't making that much money unless they're on the road. And even then, they're not making a ton of money either, necessarily, depending on who it is. So, you know, not everybody's the Foo Fighters or whatever, you know, not everybody's the stadiums, you know, Metallicas or whatever, right? Um, so anyway, that's kind of the long and short of it. Yeah, I had some interesting, you know, interesting things happen, interesting stories that I have to tell the grandkids, you know, cool things that I've seen from the from the back, you know, I don't know, just cool things that I've seen from the background, right? Like, wow, I'm seeing something that that normal people don't get to see or whatever, you know, like this is crazy, you know, just things that I'll always remember, right? Um, but yeah, I would, you know, recommend your viewers wherever go check out the episode on YouTube, you know, MTV duets or whatever, and then they at the end they give me the symbol, which I still have.
Nice.
So if you can see, you know, I had to cover up a part that Tom drew drew a wiener on. So,
So Tom.
but you know, so there's Travis's, and then Mark's over here. No, wait, that's Travis. I'm sorry. That's
Yeah.
Travis right there, and this one's Mark right here. Sorry, it's backwards, but
No, it's
I
all
still
good.
have the symbol.
Wow.
And that was that. I mean, that was a crazy experience, man, and it was crazy to feel famous for 10 seconds, you know.
Now,
And then it,
for me being your buddy back at home
yeah,
watching
yeah,
this, I remember when you came on that show. I didn't really watch The Ghost Whisperer or anything, but I remember watching that episode. And when you came on at the end, I had my parents with me, and I'm like, "Look, Mom, there's Dan. Hey, Dad, there's Dan." And you know, like go for a second, and you're rocking out. Then it jumps around. The camera jumps
yeah, yeah. It
around,
goes back and forth. Yep.
and it was really cool for me kind of being a fly on the wall in a different town, just catching up with you every time you would come back into town and tell me these
Yeah,
stories and talk to me about these adventures, and seeing it so close to kind of happening. and thinking, that was probably going to happen. I mean, you worked hard. You worked harder for it than any other musician that I know. And I wanted to be a rock star for a while too. That was one of my goals in life, was to be a professional musician. And it just sounded great. The road touring, playing shows, that's what we loved to do. But it's interesting, Dan, because in our stage of life, or even when we were in our early 30s, there comes a point of time. Who's that? Hey, there we are. I'm the guy in the red and the sunglasses right there. And there's
There's
Dan.
Terry right there, and there's Dan right there, taking a picture in front of my parents' house, sitting in a
Yes.
truck bed. Who
Uh,
knows why, but we did.
I think we were opposing a little bit. Yeah. And it's interesting to think about it, because if God were to have allowed my plans to happen, I would be in a very depressed place in life right now. I wouldn't have my wife. I wouldn't have my kids. I would be going from show to show. And kind of how you mentioned earlier, Dan, when you run into people who knew you from MTV duets, and it was just like, oh, you're the Blink guy. And that's really what any famous person is. They are that guy, or they are that girl. And it's like anyone, it's like, oh, an actor, oh, Corey Feldman, for example. People run into him and like, oh, you're the Goonies guy, or you're that one guy from the 80s shows, or they run into anyone, oh, you're that guy. They run into Rainn Wilson, Dwight from The Office, and it's like, hey, you're Dwight from The Office, and they're just that guy, and people really don't know you. They really don't know your values. They really don't know what's special in your life. They just know you as this person. If you really think about it, if people only know you as that guy, they really don't know you. They just know an image of you. So this pursuit that so many people have of fame and of
It's
recognition,
empty,
it's so
empty.
empty. It's
It
empty.
is totally empty. Yeah,
Yeah.
and
And
it really it was a cool adventure for the time, but I didn't see well, I couldn't like base my whole existence on it, right? I couldn't base like my whole life is being given up to this, right? Like it wasn't worth it because that, and I look at my kids now and I'm like, man, I almost went into a trajectory where I didn't even want to have kids, and I can't even imagine not being where I'm at right now in comparison, or having kids and having to be gone all the time, because I know that is a really really difficult thing for musicians to do, is to be able to leave their families like that for extended periods of time. Like there's interviews with Travis, even like, just because we've been talking about him, there's interviews with Travis talking about how he had to basically do drugs in order to be able to leave his family,
mm,
because he had to numb it enough to be able to leave, which is very hard. But at that point too, I mean, dude, you're signed, you're owned. Like you have to go. Like you don't like you can't just say, oh yeah, I don't feel like it. Like you've got bookings, you've got multiple stadiums that are booked, you've got touring companies, you've got bus companies, you've got all of this stuff that relies on you showing up and playing drums, and it's go time. Like you're getting up and leaving, and so that's a hard life. It's not an easy life. And I know they would say the same thing. It's a hard life.
yeah.
So
And when I look at my kids, and I think I have cute kids. I think every dad thinks that. But some people have told me like, "Oh my gosh, your boys are so cute. You should put them in commercials. They could, you're only two
yeah,
hours from LA. You can go and put them in commercials, or try to get them in a movie or something like that." And I think about it, and I'm like, well, if I were to do that,
yeah,
and they were to become successful at that, like what life is that for them? If you look at famous people, if you look at mega rich celebrities, how many of them seem super content and super happy? How many of them have marriages that
they
actually
don't.
last? How
Yeah,
many of them
they're miserable.
are drug free or
A lot of them.
alcohol free? Yeah,
Yeah,
they deal with so many addictions, so many problems, and it's like statistically, if I could 100% know that my kids, I could put them in a lifestyle or a place where they would be rich and famous, statistically, that would be a bad idea because statistically, they would not be healthy people. They would not be safe people. They would be in that area or in that type of lifestyle where statistically they would not be living a healthy lifestyle. So I want to even want that for them. What do I want for them? I want them to have a good life. I want them to have good marriages. I want them to have good families. I want them to be faithful fathers, faithful husbands, faithful to the Lord. I want them to have lives instead of riches and fame. I want them to have lives of joy and contentment. And
Mhm.
I think that's if you talk to people, that's where real content people are. That's where people who are truly where when their hearts are happy, where life's not always happy all the time, but when their hearts are happy, that's the type of lifestyle they live. And man, it's if I could just if this was like It's a Wonderful Life moment, you know, the movie It's a Wonderful Life where you get to see his life when things went differently. If things went differently and I was talking to Dan, who, quote, "made it in the music business," and who never got married and who was just traveling all the time, I think you would be a very depressed person. And I
Yeah, it
think
just depends. It's you wouldn't. There's always more to get. It's just like like every record you put out. Yeah, it's great, but then you're only judged on your most recent offerings. You constantly have to keep redoing it over and over and over again. So it's just never satisfying. It's never. Um, no, I guess they don't necessarily all feel like they've ever actually made it.
yeah,
Like you make it, you get there and you experience it, and then it's not as fulfilling as you thought it was going to be,
yeah.
right?
I
And you're
I had
like, it's still empty. Why is
yeah.
it still empty?
I had the opportunity some years back before COVID, before the pandemic, to meet one of my favorite artists. And this guy's not a believer. He's an older man, but I'm not going to say his name because I don't want to, make anyone look bad. But this guy is super successful, super famous. His paintings don't even go to a gallery; they go like straight to like a museum. And he just had a whole life of success. And through a gallery owner, I got to meet this guy. I actually got to go and take him out to dinner. Alicia and I, my wife, took him and his wife out to Mexican food. Then we went back to his house. I hung out and he showed me his newest painting. And I was just like, man, this guy is going to be inspiring to me. This guy is going to motivate me. This guy is going to be the guy that like motivates me in life to like be what he does. And I was so sadly disappointed because even though he was so successful, everything about him was sad and everything he talked about was that he felt he did not get the recognition that he deserved. And he felt he needed more. He needed more recognition. He needed more acknowledgement. He felt that he was always being cheated in the way people appreciate him. And he was not content in life. He was not happy. And even though he's had all these accolades and accomplishments, and there's going to be his name's going to be in certain art history books. He was sad, and at the end of his life, or I don't know, he was an old man. So coming to the end of his life, it almost comes off that he felt like a failure. And I don't want to be like that. And I don't think I'm going to be like that. I don't think you're going to be like that when you're older because we're going to look and we're going to see that we have our kids, or we raised these kids, that we have our wives.
It's okay to be normal. It's okay to be, yourself, to live a quiet life,
Yeah.
to enjoy your kids, enjoy your wife, enjoy your family. Like that is a-okay. And it can be very fulfilling. I mean, what's more fulfilling than, getting a smooch from your daughter, or like, someday seeing your grandkids, like, and just, I don't know, loving on your family and stuff like that, right? And just that seems so much more fulfilling than playing the same songs every night for six months straight on the road and sleeping in a bunk on the bus. And I don't know, what I mean. Not to say that there's anything. I don't know. Not to say there's necessarily anything wrong with that for some people.
Yeah. If
You
it's
know,
your calling. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it just wasn't. It wasn't for me at that age anymore. I had other things that I wanted to accomplish too,
Yeah.
right?
And one reason why I wanted you on the Dr. Blue Duck podcast is because there's gaming dads out there. And this is kind of generally for gaming dads. I know we're talking about rock and roll and music, but that's something a lot of gaming dads like too. There's a lot of gaming dads out there that whatever it was in life, maybe it was they wanted to be a pro football player and it never worked out, or they wanted to do professional baseball, or they wanted to start a multi-million dollar business, or they wanted to do this or that, or this or that, whatever it is, whatever their rock starism was, whatever their band experience that didn't quote work out, there's some guys out there that are kind of living in this regret and this lack of contentment and this, man, if that just would have worked out, my life would be so much better. If that would have happened, my life would have been so much better. We were talking about Napoleon Dynamite the other day.
Rico. Yep.
Uncle Rico, what's he say again?
Man, I would have made state, I could throw a football over them mountains, like, and
Exactly.
it's like, bro, you're still living in high school, dude.
Yeah. And it's like those those dads out there, they might be saying it out loud, or it might just be something that lingers in the back of their minds, like only if this would happen. And one reason I wanted you on this podcast is that didn't happen for you. Your, pipe dream from your childhood did not happen. And that
Mhm.
was a good thing overall. It was hard, but it was a good thing overall. And my pipe
You
dream
know,
didn't work out
I
either.
know everybody doesn't have the Christian perspective that we have, so I'll just say that this is true for me, right? Basically, God knew better for me the trajectory of my life than I did. Like, he knew that I wouldn't ultimately be fulfilled by what I was going so hard after, right? He knew that the true fulfillment would come from a relationship with him, and then having a family and things like that, right? And being able to lead a family, and bring up my kids in fear and admonition of the Lord, and that those would be much more fulfilling as a whole, and things that I would look, when I'm 80 years old, when I look back at my life, what am I most proud of, right? I'm proud of my kids and my wife and my family that I've built, those types of things, much more than like, man, I played maybe, I didn't play enough shows, or whatever, right? Like, so I think that, ultimately God knew better, and he knew me. He knew, because he created me, all right? He knew me better, and knew ultimately that my fulfillment would be found in him. And so, yes, it was painful at the time when those things disintegrated, as you can imagine, right? When you get the letter from the label saying that it's all canceled and this thing you've been working for 3 years is out the window in a moment, right? Like, you know, when those hard things happen, they're really, I mean, they're detrimental to you at the time. But God was willing to put those things into my life and have those things happen, because he ultimately knew that what would happen to me later would be more fulfilling, right? Because he knew it's like, it's like you're not going to give your kid candy for breakfast every day, right? Even though that would make them happy in the moment at that one little glimmer of time, you're not going to keep giving them candy every day for breakfast, because ultimately it's going to be terrible for them, right?
Definitely.
So, but the idea is that, yeah, it's some momentary pain that I had to go through or whatever, but ultimately it was for my good
Yeah.
in the
And
long run.
that's so true, Dan. I want to bring us, we're almost out of time here. I want to bring us back to today. What are you doing today? What are you doing now? Did you start your own business?
Yeah.
What's going on?
Yeah, so I'm a mortgage broker now, so I can do mortgages nationwide. So I help people buy houses and refinance houses. And so I do that 100% from home, which is awesome. So I get to be around my kids a little bit more than the average Joe does, right? So that's been pretty cool. You can see, in my little home office here that I'm talking to you guys from now. I have a YouTube channel that I'm getting going, which is at Bakersfield Lender. So follow me there if you would mind. And yeah, it keeps me busy, but then it keeps me, a little more home than normal, like, I don't have to go to the office every day, right? I just work at home. And so it's been really cool to be able to kind of support my wife with homeschooling and things like that as well. But yeah, I'm doing that. I play drums in church with you. And just kind of living a quiet life, and it's fun to reminisce on the past every so often, and kind of, pull out the picture books that are starting to cloud up because they're old. They're 20 years old now, so I probably should take digitals of all of these pictures because I'm gonna lose them fairly soon. But yeah, it's cool to reminisce about it and kind of think about the things that have happened in the past.
So if someone's like, "Hey, I kind of like this Dan Artist guy, and I'm getting ready to sell or buy my house or buy a house," I'm going to go ahead
Yeah,
and put your link below too, so
yeah,
they can contact you and do that. And I like to leave it with this too. This is a lot for gaming dads, and you
yeah,
are a dad who plays some video games from time
yeah,
to time when you're not doing everything else you're doing. What? And you have two girls and a boy. So what's your
yeah.
gaming experiences with them like?
Yeah, right now it's Mario Kart Wars with all the kids. So it's
Yeah.
me and today is actually Grace's great. My middle daughter is her 7th birthday today. So my 9, 7, and 5 year old kiddos and I play Mario Kart. And so my 5 year old's actually doing pretty good. Like she's kind of got some like a sixth sense in there about like making it. I mean, she's still not beating any of us yet, but I mean, I'm like, hey, you're not doing so bad though for 5. So I
Yeah.
mean, she can barely get her hands around it, but yeah. So that's what you'll find us doing that, and then my son and I will play MLB The Show 25, and we'll just do baseball wars because he's really into baseball. Go Dodgers. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Go Dodgers.
but that's the majority of our gaming at this point.
Yeah.
Sadly, not a whole lot of time for much else as far as gaming is concerned for that, just with the job and then just, managing the 3 kids or whatever. But, that time will come. There'll be another season with we can do a little bit more gaming and stuff like that. But yeah.
Yeah. I remember when your son was younger, he was just running around your house being Sonic the Hedgehog, and
Yeah. Oh
he
yeah.
was he was pretty fast like Sonic the Hedgehog too.
Yeah.
So
He doesn't walk. He only runs.
yeah. And
Yeah.
this is
He
kind
is
of a
a,
challenge too for you
yeah.
gaming dads out there. If you're
Yeah.
playing games with your dads and I'm sorry, play games with your kids, dads, and you look down and you see your kids just playing, pause for a moment and just kind of reflect and just kind of think, man, what if you would have gone down a different path in life and you didn't have these kids right now?
Would you actually have been happier? Maybe, maybe not.
Yeah,
Depends. But it's really just about being content with where the Lord has you at,
exactly.
for such a time as this, right? Like,
Exactly.
why are you here right now in this moment, in this state? Like I'm having a major impact on my children. I think that that's better for the world than potentially me being on the road or whatever, right? Raising up 3, amazing kids. I don't know. Those are just things that I think about as far as like being content with where the Lord has me, and not always dwelling on the past or what could have been or whatever. The world has changed a lot as far as music business is concerned. When I started, you could sell CDs. When I left, you couldn't. So it was one of those things where the industry even just changed around me, right? And we've seen the world change how many times now? I mean, in many many ways.
There
So
might be
you
a few
just
younger dads listening right now that are like, what's a CD?
yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
So, well, Dan, thanks so much for being on the Dr. Blue Duck podcast. And I'll go ahead and put his link below on our YouTube description there if you guys want to check out Dan Artis. And as always, guys, be kind, use your mind, and game on.